In a world of fast-moving digital communication, instant news and rapid analysis, it's tempting to think that books don't matter anymore. I beg to differ. We've just celebrated the 10th edition of the Business Book of the Year Award, launched in 2005 to find the most compelling and enjoyable titles of the year. Over the past 10 years, more than 150 books longlisted for our award have laid out a roadmap of a turbulent decade for business, for media, and for publishing, with the financial crisis at its centre.
Important to remember, the first winner was Tom Friedman's The World is Flat, which defined the decade. That was the time when we thought globalization was irreversible, economic growth plenty, and then of course the financial crisis struck, and you've had a number of important books built around Wall Street, banking, debt, and I think then living with the crisis's aftermath. So one of the tasks of the judges is always to think about what is forward-looking and what's backward-looking.
Our business books of the decade show pretty clearly how business failed to see the crisis coming. In 2008, for example, the judges met to consider a shortlist the day after Lehman Brothers collapsed. But the long list of 15 books that they considered that day contained only 2 that looked directly at banking, finance and markets. Authors made up for that in following years. And the range of books that we've considered for the long list over the decade demonstrate the different ways in which big business themes can be tackled.
What has struck me is that the books had started with a narrative, the story, or the drama of how characters behaved during the crisis, including my period in government, which I'd really rather forget. But moving on to the analysis of the underlying causes, whether that is fault lines, which was the winner, and talked about how the response to growing inequality was let them eat credit, or this year in the shortlist House of Debt, where there was a really new insight of not looking at it so much as a credit crunch, but a fall in demand.
For me, the standout titles among our winners are books like Liaquat Ahmed's Lords of Finance, which won in 2009. Ahmed proved with his story of Depression-era bankers and the errors they made that history had really relevant lessons for their modern counterparts. As he writes, in trying to calm anxious investors, monetary policymakers and central bankers are called upon to wrestle with some of the most elemental and unpredictable forces of mass psychology. Raghuram Rajan gave a devastating critique of those policymakers' complacency in his 2010 winner, Fault Lines. The book argues that there are serious flaws in the economy that still needed to be corrected or risk another crisis. Now, as head of the Reserve Bank of India, Rajan himself is one of the people looking to correct those fault lines. The judges have also rewarded traditional corporate investigations. Steve Cole's Private Empire, which won in 2012, is a classic example. An investigation of the power and influence and reach of ExxonMobil, the American oil company. It is likely to be the definitive account of one of the world's largest companies for some time to come.
I think we are in a very dangerous position today everywhere in the world, with large segments of the population feeling disenfranchised and mistrustful of business, of politicians, of the media, generally of the establishment. And what would be great is to have books that can explain underlying causes and underlying complexity in a way that is accessible to a wider audience.
As well as including a once-in-a-generation financial crisis, the past 10 years have seen a shift in the destiny of publishers with the advent of more digital e-books and self-publishing online. But I think the enduring interest in business books means there will continue to be a great demand for fantastic business stories about management, finance or economics a decade from now, whether they're found in the cloud, on devices, or in traditional bookshelves. I'm Andrew Hill, Financial Times, London.